As restrictions begin to be lifted and workplaces open, we know that many people with diabetes are concerned about their risk of exposure because of their own health and the health of their families. We know that in the group of people who live with diabetes, there are many different types of risk factors and potential reasons why a person might be at increased risk. And that's why we really encourage people to contact their family doctor, endocrinologist, or diabetes team to really get an assessment of their own individual risk. If after that conversation you've determined that you are at higher risk, that's a really good reason to go talk to your employer and ask for some accommodation. Depending on your job, that might mean that you're able to request physical placement so that you're not interacting with the public as much. It might mean that you request to work remotely, or potentially a change in your roles so that you're able to interact with the public less frequently, or potentially not at all. Some employers are increasing their cleaning practices. Others are providing hand sanitizers. Some, I hear, are providing personal protective equipment. So depending on what your employer is able to do, you might feel quite comfortable with the accommodations that they're able to make. If after that discussion, however, if you're not comfortable, then you might have the option as well of requesting a leave of absence. So depending on your employment situation and other kind of personal factors, that might be a feasible alternative for you. If you do feel that you are at higher risk and you've discussed that with your healthcare provider, you can also go to diabetes.ca/coronavirus and download a letter that Diabetes Canada has written to support your request for accommodation.
Many people living through COVID and having diabetes are quite stressed because of the current circumstances. If you find that your stress level doesn't fade, it will be important to understand it and then develop strategies to manage. We need to appreciate that the normal response to the perception of threat is to feel anxious. So I could ask, are you experiencing any threat related to the pandemic? Most of us are. The perception of loss is associated with the feeling of sadness. Are you feeling any loss during this pandemic? And most of us would say yes. And the perception of injustice or intrusion leads to the feeling of anger. And in some countries we're seeing this where a lot of people are quite angry because of lockdowns, etc. My main point here is to link our normal lived experience. It is threatening. We are experiencing losses, and this causes stress. So this allows us to understand that as stress goes up, self-care goes down. The important message is that there are a lot of things that we can do to lower our stress level. And as stress levels come down, it makes it easier for us to cope. There are basically 5 stress-reducing strategies. First is physical calming, finding calm, peaceful moments. Strategies such as deep breathing, meditation, deep muscle relaxation, Tai Chi, yoga, those peaceful types of activities, even things such as prayer, petting a cat or a dog if you're an animal lover, tending your plants, reading a novel with a cup of tea, any of these activities. I'm trying to send the message that it's important for us to find what works for us. In addition to physical calming is what we call physical discharge, activity, exercise, burning off excess energy. And again, find what works for you. It could be walking, it could be dancing, it could be climbing the stairs in your home to burn off energy. Anything that works to get rid of that pent-up stress. Third, social connection. We know that we are really social beings and we benefit by connecting to others. Similar to that is what we call emotional expression. Don't keep our feelings bottled up, but find ways of expressing ourselves. And finally, what we call acceptance or mindfulness, which is on sort of disconnecting from the tendency to worry and sort of think things, overthink things, focus on the negatives, etc. It's a way of helping us just become calm in the moment and peaceful in the moment. So I've outlined 5 strategies. We know that the strategies that work are the strategies that make sense to the person. that when they do it, it helps them and they're motivated to do it again. So don't worry if you try a few strategies and it doesn't fit. Keep trying, and most people will find that there are a number of strategies from those categories that could be helpful. Good.
Many countries around the world have either recommended or mandated the use of non-medical masks in public settings where physical distancing measures can't be maintained. When out in parks, if we can't make sure that children can maintain a safe physical distance of 2 meters or 6 feet from others, or if they are touching play structures or benches or water fountains, then the mask is an important added measure. The benefit of wearing a mask involves the reduction of the spread of respiratory droplets that contain the virus from people who might be infected but have not shown any symptoms yet, or those who are infected but will not have symptoms. It's really important to know that not all children require to wear a mask, and those who don't include children who are less than 2 years of age, those who might have breathing problems, and those who can't independently remove their mask. It's also important to know that masks are only one measure that needs to be added to the other measures that we have in place to flatten the curve. And these include things like maintaining safe physical distancing, hand washing, covering coughs and sneezes, cleaning surfaces, and making sure that we do not touch the mouth, nose, or eyes. Please be guided by your local public health agencies that are responding to the pandemic for their mask recommendations to stay safe.
Coping with a pandemic such as COVID-19 is difficult for most of us. If you're living with diabetes, it's even more difficult because diabetes requires a lot of focused attention, and the stress associated with COVID distracts us from that. And we know that very much we have limited capacity to focus on things. So there's only so many things we can deal with. And all of the disruptions to our lifestyle associated with COVID-19 are associated also with interfering with self-care. So if you're having trouble refocusing on your diabetes, the first thing I would ask you is to understand that. So don't judge it. Try not to think of it as a failure or a negative. Try to think about it as normal. Stress goes up, self-care goes down. Diabetes requires a lot of self-care. This makes perfect sense. So if we can accept that the problem is there, that it's not a personal failure or a flaw, we can then move on to the next step. And I'd like to make a suggestion to you. Traditionally in diabetes, individuals living with diabetes use their relationship with their healthcare providers to benefit them. Perfect. We really promote that. But the nature of that relationship tends to look like this. You get an appointment at someone else's convenience. You drive to the clinic. You pay for parking. You have to surrender your healthcare card. You wait in the waiting room, and then you go home into your life. So diabetes management sort of occurs in a clinic, out of your normal life, and then you go back into your life. In COVID, we have the opportunity to bring the management piece into your life. We may find that COVID-19 helps us with diabetes management because it allows us to focus more on what is diabetes management in the context of your life. So the two things I'd like to suggest to you is that you think about your contacts with healthcare providers, your contacts with information, and how they can actually fit into your life. So I just have this image of a dietitian in a diabetes center talking to a patient with plastic food. Great. These models are really helpful. But guess what? If you had a conversation with a dietitian on Zoom, you could show the dietitian your fridge. And that's actually much more relevant to you. So if we could accept that there's a certain burden associated with this, take a breath, refocus our energies, then in fact, I think self-management can actually be enhanced. It's also very useful to take advantage of technologies. And so what can you learn by downloading apps? Get the best out of your meters, how we can actually capitalize on ways of incorporating good diabetes management. I do think it requires a little bit of creativity on our part, but I actually see that as a positive thing. Because what we know is that diabetes requires self-management. Self-management really needs somebody to be able to determine exactly how does any diabetes care behavior fit into a person's life. And the best person to determine that is actually you, not us. So I hope that this has been helpful and a bit of a kind of we call it a reframing from, oh no, I can't get access to my clinic, there's too many things going on, to actually, how does this support me in managing my diabetes? Because after all, it is your disease and our job is really to support you in your management.
Hi everybody, my name is Mark Rubenstein and I'm the CEO of a charity called Hope Air. Every year, Hope Air helps thousands of individuals and families in financial need with free air flights and accommodations when traveling long distances to access specialized medical care. If you or someone you know want more information about Hope Air programs and services, please visit us online at hopeair.ca. Thanks.